Yes, let's now take a look at a story making headlines on Citizen Digital. That's citizentv.co.ke. Environment and Forestry Cabinet Secretary Keriako Tobiko has proposed changes to environment laws to give government agencies powers to investigate and arrest lawbreakers. Now, speaking after making an impromptu visit to the National Environment Management Agency, NEMA, head offices in Nairobi yesterday, Tobiko said there were gaps in the law that have made it difficult for environment agencies like NEMA to crack down on those who violate environmental laws and regulations. He says NEMA officials should be given powers to arrest lawbreakers instead of relying on police officers and county askaris to do that for them. Yes, joining me this morning for that conversation, Geoffrey Wahungu, Director General, NEMA. Good morning, sir. Karibu sana. Now, this is no simple pronouncement by the newly sworn-in Cabinet Secretary, giving NEMA, or proposing that NEMA should be given powers to actually arrest offenders, coming at a time when you're still trying to effect the ban on plastic bags. This is big, if at all it goes through. If NEMA was to get powers to carry out arrests the way NTSA officers do on the roads, this would really help your cause, don't you think?
Sure, Fred. The Cabinet Secretary did indeed pronounce himself to that as part of reforms in the environment sector, and he should know better. You are aware that my Cabinet Secretary has been the immediate DPP.
Yes.
We have been working together. He has built NEMA's capacity for prosecutions. So he has donated to us, or his office has donated to us prosecutory powers. The current arrangement is that for our officers and their gazetted inspectors to make arrests, they have to be accompanied by police officers. We have a police unit that is attached to NEMA that we work with, but they are few. And for example, the current ongoing crackdown on plastic bags, some of the challenges we faced is just having to spread ourselves so thin, or even to be able to organize for police, and police have jurisdiction. So everywhere we go, for example in county, you go from one place to another, you have to talk to the OCS or the OCPD to allocate you police.
So it's purely an admission that there was failure, probably in the lack of synergy or the lack of a proper working relationship between NEMA and the police or county administration in as far as affecting the ban on plastic carrier bags.
It is not failure, because that is the position that prevailed at the time. And of course what I'm talking about are logistical challenges, because police, you are aware, have their own plan of work. Initially we actually had agreed, and we still have a lot of support, and the IG has given us a lot of support in this. However, there are so many competing interests, particularly with regard to crime. There are many types of crimes, and therefore we find ourselves having to work with a small section of the police force that we can rely on, who are attached to our unit, and that for the others then we have also to fit into their programs, and that makes a smooth running or rollout of the crackdown quite challenging. It is therefore not, it is a weakness that has been there in law, but the capacity building for NEMA is an ongoing process, and I'm happy that coming from the office where he has come from, the new Cabinet Secretary has brought on board even more support to the authority, adding on to what he had already given us before.
And looking at the institution that the CS was trying to draw parallels with NEMA, and as far as proposing that you get powers to arrest, that's NTSA. Just recently, the president actually decided to kick out NTSA from the roads because, yes, they had powers to arrest, but they still were not able to do that because either way, if you're given powers to arrest, do you still have enough manpower to do that across the country? NTSA complained about lack of capacity. The police force is across the country. Don't you think that you would have been better served still working with the police as opposed to having your own force or having NEMA getting powers to arrest? Because how far can you go just as NEMA in terms of enforcing the ban on plastic bags across the country and arresting offenders across?
I want to correct that The Cabinet Secretary, in his pronouncement and the discussions we had, our position is not that we need police. We need environment police. And what that means is that we have to train our own environment police.
But how big would that environment police be? Because you need to cover the entire country either way. Wouldn't you just be coming up with a parallel police force? Because there's already a police force in place, a police service in place. If you say that NEMA should have its own arresting officials or inspectorate, do you think that you'd really need a lot of people, a really large workforce to cover the entire country?
No. The assumption you're saying, even now, the National Police Force, they have no capacity to police all the Kenyans according to what is required, even by international law. But that is not the point where we want to go. What we are talking about here is a specialized police force that understands environment and environmental compliance. It is not about arresting, but a force, and we are not talking about a parallel force that is going to go around arresting people, because really environmental crimes are not as widespread with regard to daily occurrence as any other petty crimes that we come around. We are talking basically about the level of training, because even currently we have our own police. If we only build on that force and do the training ourselves, the way other natural resource agencies like Kenya Forest Service, they have trained rangers who understand the resource they are protecting, and they understand the ethics of the work they are doing, and the same. So we are not different, because the environment space and the compliance space is so unique. You require a lot of technical skills to be able to understand the situation, and basically this is what we are talking about.
And don't you think you run into the same kind of problem that NTSA ran into, lack of capacity? They have powers to arrest or to actually crack down on offenders of transport and safety, but at some point they were not able to carry out their mandate properly. They said it's due to capacity, and the president actually kicked them out of the roads. They said, take it back to the police. Don't you think that NEMA taking up that kind of mantle, at some point it could be too much for them, and they'll end up with the president saying again, no, NEMA can't do it, give it back to the police?
I want to talk about NEMA because this is where I work, and this is the
we're doing the parallels because that's what the CS used and said. NTSA has powers to arrest, then NEMA should also do the same.
I do not want to go so much into trying to think for my cabinet secretary. He did visit us yesterday, and what he said is part of his reforms. I want to talk about the way I understood it and what we have always wished for. When you have a capacity gap, and capacity gaps in terms of manpower in Kenya is not a challenge only for NEMA. It's a challenge for many government institutions. And we cannot deny that that is a situation that befalls us. But at the same time, when you want to correct a situation, or when you have seen challenges, you cannot move back or stay where you are and refuse to move forward just because you may be perceived to act in a certain way, or someone may try to put you in a certain suit that is cut for everybody, that this is the path you're likely to follow if you take this path. The circumstances are very different. The way we operate are very different also. Our space of operation is very different. I do not think that even by having our own police force that we are going to clash with the police who are acting in other spaces with regard to compliance. Our mandate is clear-cut, and where we operate is defined, and what we do is completely unique from others. And therefore I do not see any situation of us falling in a trap like that. However, I want to say it is not about being given police to use. We are talking about employing people who are educated, taking them through the course of policing, and then assigning them duties that are policing for the environment. This is the kind of force we are envisaging. And
wouldn't it be easier if you were to get those people from trained police officers, probably straight from Kiganjo with police training, then you recruit them into this force, and probably just extend their education in as far as environmental matters are concerned? Is it something
is that
you
your
considered?
perception of...
Is it something you've considered?
Not yet. What I've considered is what I've told you about us training our own. Of course, what we are talking about is that the training of a policeman, there is a certain specialized training for a policeman, and then there is the training for what the work they are going to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the ban on plastic carrier bags, because at the end of this month, it will be exactly 6 months after that ban came into effect. Where exactly are you in as far as affecting it? Yes, so we saw some crackdowns this week. Coincidentally, it happened at the same time that there's a changeover in the CS for the Ministry of Environment. Is that coincidence? And where are we in as far as affecting that ban?
We have weekly data on enforcement, and it's not a coincidence. Last week, we arrested about 30 people countrywide in the Mount Kenya circuit, Mwea. If you are aware, there is a shopping center called Wamumu, or Wamumu, just as you branch, and then along the route of Nanyuki. The previous week, we did arrests in Narok, and the other previous week elsewhere. So this is not whatever. The way media perceive it, perhaps, when there is a new...
No, we're just trying to help the public understand what exactly is happening. Because it would appear like, okay, fine, a new CS has come in, and probably that's why NEMA is rushing to actually put its house in order.
But now you got my point, that we've been doing it all through. So the way it was reported, I don't want to say why then there was no coverage in before, because we've always done it with the media. Even that was done with the media. How they report, perhaps, it's a perception of the circumstances, and I don't want to dwell on that. I want to say one thing, that Rome was not built in a day, and I want to be honest, and I would like Kenyans to be honest, as I thank them for supporting us in the ban, which has by and large been very successful. Who would have thought that would be where we are now? We are already seeing success. We have seen a clean and healthy environment even before counties come and organize themselves to do the mop-up, so that we can see the results.
And when you talk about success, can you quantify that success for our viewers in terms of numbers? What are we looking at? How was the situation just before August the 28th, and where are we now?
If before 28th, the use of carrier bags, you know, the ones where you put, the ones that were used for shopping, and the ones that in the kiosk always you'd see them hanging for sale, in terms of that, 100%, give and take with 90, because the small black one is still on the black market, and we've been working on that.
The black plastic carrier bag?
The small one, not the big ones. But I want to say that 100%, take or add 5%.
100%?
Yes.
You've managed to get rid of plastic carrier bags, the big ones?
The carrier bags, 100%.
They are gone?
Visible. Why I'm saying minus, you can minus 5%, because those are on the black market, they are not on display, and those are the ones we are cracking on. The flat bag, the small jewel, the one Mama Boga uses for boga, some are used for milk. Or,
the transparent ones?
Yes. Those ones say 80%.
So that is the biggest problem now?
That is the biggest problem now. And the regime of banned substances, be narcotics or anything, after the ban, everything has a phase where it fizzles out, and then it appears in the black market. It is not unique to plastic bags, and we expected this trend to come. We are ready for it. We've been doing that, as I have told you, arrests have been done, and therefore I would like to ask Kenyans to be vigilant and also support us, especially when you are trying to crack the black market. You are aware that our countries in the region, some of them have not banned plastics in the EAC. We think that there is a lot of infiltration of this
from neighboring countries.
From the countries, neighboring countries, for example. Other than Rwanda, of course, you know, Uganda did that, but they are struggling with the ban. They're still manufacturing. Tanzania, the same. And therefore, we know that there could be trade that is coming from there. We've done some arrests and we have records to show that that is happening.
And in as far as prosecution of offenders, how many people would you say have gone to court for offending this ban?
We have, by yesterday, you're saying that we added a loss, but we have made steady progress. So it's about 228 by yesterday. 8 of those, or 6 actually, are large manufacturers who had been doing it at night. About 30 are distributors, where we arrest a hawker or someone who leads us to a distribution chain and to a warehouse. And then the rest are, users, normal users of the same. The courts have been very supportive of us. At first lenient, which we didn't complain about because we really wanted to create awareness. But now you saw in Mombasa yesterday 50,000 shillings fine or 1 year imprisonment. You can't complain about that.
And you've already gotten convictions on that?
Yes, yesterday that was what was. I don't have the details about whether they were able to do that. But in the past we have had people who have put who have been bailed out for 2 million shillings in some parts of the countries like Nanyuki, Nyeri, and even in Nairobi here. Yes.
Now, as we wrap up this interview, there's one more issue away from the plastic bags, but NEMA has been handling this as well, and that's noise pollution, especially in Nairobi, with entertainment joints, especially in market areas, Kilimani, along Ngong Road and such. Where are we on this in terms of compliance? Because we do understand quite a number, if not all, of those entertainment spots are back in business.
Frank, I want you to make citizens understand that what we did was an intervention. In 2015, we rolled out this, it's a devolved function, noise pollution. And we have been training counties and building capacity for them to take up this activity of the law. By and large, counties have not been successful. It's been a challenge to them. And therefore, the intervention that we did is because the law still, or the constitution still says that NEMA is the agency of government that is responsible to provide a clean and healthy environment. And therefore, when county government seems to be struggling, we come on board and show them exactly how to do it. But that does not mean that it's our work. Our intervention at the level of noise pollution is the infrastructure.
You're not the ones who are enforcing that?
We shouldn't be enforcing, but it's still our duty if there is a gap in enforcement. So we shouldn't really be doing that, but we are watching the space. So we do it and hand over to the county, and then we hope that this will not recur. But if it recurs, then we are on board and ready to do it, because it's still our duty. All we want is peace for Kenyans.
Thank you so much, Geoffrey Wahungu, Director General, National Environment Management Authority, NEMA, for helping us understand the proposal to actually allow that agency to have arresting powers the same way that NTSA does.